There is a nationwide outbreak of an internal parasite called Cyclospora. Now, this parasite comes from human fecal contamination, not animal manure, not insects, not something that naturally grows inside lettuce, human waste. And when a parasite found only in humans end up on food somewhere, I would say along the journey from the field to the plate, there has been a failure involving sanitation, water, hygiene, or food handling. Now, this is what I want to talk about today. I want you to understand what Cyclospora is, how human waste can reach our food, why the illness may not appear until 2 weeks after exposure, what it can do to your gut, why a regular stool test may miss it, and the precautions I believe we should take right now. So let's start with what is a parasite. So a parasite is an organism that lives on or in another living organism, and it's called the host. And it depends on the host for survival. Now, the parasite benefits while the host may be harmed. Some parasites take nutrients from the host. Some damage tissue. Some trigger inflammation. Some interfere with digestion and nutrient absorption. Others can live inside the body while causing symptoms that are so vague they are blamed on something else. And here's another thing. Not all parasites are worms. Some parasites are worms like tapeworms, roundworms, and hookworms, but other parasites are so small that you cannot see them without a microscope. And Cyclospora is one of those parasites. It is a microscopic single-cell parasite called a protozoan. You cannot look into the toilet and expect to see it. You cannot see it crawling on your lettuce. You cannot taste it in your food. You cannot smell it in your water. And that is what makes microscopic parasites so easy to overlook. People may have diarrhea, bloating, cramps, nausea, fatigue, or unexplained weight loss and never consider a parasite because they are waiting to see a worm. So, for an example, Cyclospora, they invade the cells lining the small intestine, and that's where they reproduce. So when we talk about parasite awareness, we are not only talking about worms, we are also talking about microscopic organisms that may be hiding in food or water and cannot be seen with the human eye. Now, humans are considered the only known host of Cyclospora cayetanensis, that's the scientific word, and I hope I said it right, then it's a problem. Scientists have not established a meaningful animal reservoir that explain these foodborne outbreaks. So that means a deer did not walk through a field and naturally spread Cyclospora onto the crop. A cow did not create this particular parasite in its manure. A chicken did not place it there. Cyclospora begins with an infected human passing the parasite in stool. That human waste then has to reach food or water. So when Cyclospora appears on produce, that is a fundamental challenge in a sense. And I would say fundamentally, that is a sanitation and water contamination problem. But the exact point of contamination may be difficult to prove, but the biological trail, it leads back to human fecal matter. Now, how does human waste get into our food? Well, a lot of people hear fecal contamination and immediately imagine that someone deliberately went to the bathroom directly on a head of lettuce. That's not it. It can happen more indirect than that. Now, contamination may begin with inadequate toilet and hand washing facilities for our agriculture workers. Farm workers are handling our food under difficult conditions, sometimes for long hours in large fields. But they need clean, accessible toilets, safe hand washing stations, soap, clean water, and enough time to use them. Now, when those facilities are too far away, poorly maintained, insufficient for the number of workers, or unavailable, people still have to relieve themselves. And if someone is forced to use the field or nearby land as a bathroom, human waste can enter the soil and surrounding environment. And if that person cannot properly wash their hands afterward, the parasite can also be transferred through handling. Now, this is not about attacking farm workers, because workers should not be placed in conditions where basic sanitation is inaccessible. Safe food begins with treating the people who grow and harvest it. They should be treated like human beings and providing provided what they need, the proper facilities. But workers are only one possible route. Sewage can also contaminate agricultural water. A leaking sewer line, a failing septic system, untreated wastewater, discharges, or sewage that's overflowing can introduce human waste into nearby water. Now, that water may enter streams and canals and ponds and reservoirs or groundwater sources that's used for agricultural purposes. And if it's contaminated and then used to irrigate crops, the parasite can be distributed over a large growing area. So think about irrigation systems spraying or dripping water across thousands of plants. If that water contains Cyclospora, this is no longer one contaminated leaf. That water becomes the delivery system. Heavy rain can move the contamination, and rain does not create Cyclospora, but it can move it. Heavy rainfall can wash human waste from contaminated soil into drainage ditches, into rivers and canals and irrigation sources. And rain can overwhelm sewage systems and cause untreated or partially treated wastewater to overflow. And that flood water can cross agricultural land and carry contamination from one location into another. Now, a farm may not have created the original contamination, but can still be affected by water moving across the environment. And there's rivers and surface water that can also carry contamination. Now, rivers and other surface water sources can receive runoff from communities, from sewage discharges, from leaking sanitation systems, and upstream directly to human activity. That water may look clear and still contain microscopic pathogens. Now, the water used after harvesting matters also. So contaminated water is used to rinse, to cool, or process produce that can transfer organisms across in large batches of food. And this is why investigators examine far more than the final package. They look at irrigation, they look at the water, the worker, the sanitation, the toilets, all of these things. And the FDA specifically advises farms to evaluate their environmental sources. So this is things that should be checked, and maybe it's not checked enough. So here's something else about Cyclospora. Cyclospora is not immediately infectious when it leaves the body. Here's a fact most people do not know. When an infected person passes Cyclospora in stool, the parasite is not usually ready to infect someone else immediately. It must remain in the environment and mature, a process called sporulation. Now, that process can take days or even 1 to 2 weeks, depending on environmental conditions. Only after it matures does it become infectious. So this helps explain why Cyclospora is not usually passed directly from one person to another through ordinary contact. It also tells us something important about contamination. If Cyclospora becomes infectious on food, the fecal contamination probably did not happen 5 minutes before the food was eaten. The parasite likely had time somewhere in the environment, the water system, the field, or food production chain to mature. That is why water and environmental sanitation receive so much attention during these Cyclospora investigations. So why am I addressing all of this? Well, for most of you who know me, I teach health classes about detoxification and parasite awareness. And I educate people about parasites because they are more common and more varied than many people realize. And most people never think about parasites until an outbreak appears like this in the news. Then suddenly everyone learns that a microscopic organism can contaminate something as ordinary as a salad, an herb, berries, or raw vegetables. But the possibility of parasitic exposure did not begin with this outbreak, everyone. This outbreak simply brought the conversation into public view. We should always be listening and learning about parasites. And I'm not using this outbreak to tell people that a detox program or an herbal cleanse will treat Cyclospora, because it will not. I'm not here to tell you that. You need to get this diagnosed. I'm addressing it because people need to understand that parasites are real. Food and water contamination are real. They deserve proper investigation. So people also need to understand the difference between supporting the body's natural detoxification system and treating a diagnosed infection. And in this case, if you have this, you need to see a healthcare provider. Now, your liver, your kidneys, your intestines, your lungs, your skin, and your lymphatic system system are involved in processing and eliminating substances every single day. And we can support those systems. But when a specific parasite has infected the small intestine, support does not replace diagnosis and treatment. If you think you have this, don't self-diagnose. Go see your healthcare provider. So what does Cyclospora do inside the body? So Cyclospora infects the lining of the small intestine. The small intestine is where much of your food is digested and where a large portion of your nutrients and fluids are absorbed. The parasite enters intestinal cells, develops and reproduces right there. And that can injure or inflame the intestinal lining. And as the intestinal surface becomes disturbed, the body may not absorb water and nutrients as efficiently. And fluid remains in the intestine and is lost through diarrhea. So food may move through the digestive tract too quickly. Now that person may stop eating normally because of nausea, cramping, or fear of another urgent bowel movement. This creates several problems at once. The body is fighting an infection, the body is losing water, the body is losing electrolytes, and it may be absorbing fewer nutrients, and the person may be eating less. This is why Cyclospora can leave someone feeling completely drained. Symptoms may take up to 2 weeks to appear, and Cyclospora does not usually make you sick immediately after you eat it, and I just mentioned that. It's not going to make you sick immediately. Symptoms commonly begin about 1 week after exposure, but the incubation period can be approximately 2 to 14 days. That is a major reason outbreaks are difficult to trace. A person becomes sick and naturally blames the last meal they ate, but the exposure may have happened a week or nearly 2 weeks earlier. So by that point, the packaging may be gone, the leftovers may be gone, the person may have eaten several restaurants and purchased so many different things during that time. You can't pinpoint it to Cyclospora. So this is why right now we need to be very careful of what we eat. It is so important. So here are some of the symptoms of Cyclospora. Right now, everyone is talking about the frequent watery diarrhea or the explosive diarrhea. Other symptoms can be severe bloating and gas, abdominal cramps, nausea, loss of an appetite, unintentional weight loss, extreme fatigue, body ache, headache, fever, vomiting. All of these are symptoms. And one of the most important clues is that the illness may appear to improve and then return. So someone can feel sick, begin recovering, and then experience another round of diarrhea, bloating, and exhaustion. So my point is, without appropriate treatment, symptoms can continue for weeks or even longer. That is not something to dismiss. Now, parasites can mimic other health problems, but Cyclospora causes a recognizable pattern. But parasitic infections in general do not all behave the same way. Here's something that you also should know. Cyclospora can also be missed because many routine stool tests do not automatically include it. So a healthcare provider may need to specifically request Cyclospora testing. You request it. Don't just think that they're going to test for it. You have to request it. So what should we do right now? Well, my approach during an active nationwide outbreak is to be cautious about uncooked produce. Public health authorities have not told every American to stop eating all raw fruits and vegetables. They didn't tell us to do that. But I want to make this clear because Cyclospora can be difficult to remove from produce. So I am personally choosing cooked fruits and vegetables whenever practical until more is understood about this. And I do want to tell you this. What we're learning is washing our fruits and vegetables may not reduce the contamination. Even though I'm big on my baking soda and my vinegar wash, and I still recommend that, they're saying that they don't know if that kills it. Many studies are saying they don't think that it kills this Cyclospora. So again, what we're learning is what kills it. It's not eating it raw, and it's heating our food to at least 158 degrees Fahrenheit. That kills the parasite, and that has been proven that that happens. So that doesn't mean lightly warming a vegetable. Food itself needs to reach the proper temperature. So we're talking 158 degrees or higher. So for now, my precautions would be choose cooked vegetables instead of raw salads. Cook vegetables thoroughly enough to reach at least 158 degrees Fahrenheit. Avoid raw garnishes that may have been added after a dish was cooked. Be cautious with raw leafy greens, herbs, berries, and other produce that is difficult to clean completely. Wash your hands with soap and clean water before preparing food and after using the bathroom and after handling potentially, because we don't know, contaminated produce. Here's another thing that people miss. Clean your knives, your cutting boards, and your countertops so contamination is not transferred to other food. You also want to keep raw produce separate from from cooked food. You want to follow official recall and outbreak notices because the investigation right now may change. And here's something I want to share with you. Do not use bleach or dish detergent or household cleaners on your food, please. Peeling may lower exposure for some fruits and vegetables, but it's not a guarantee. So wash the outside first, even on something you have to peel, so that you don't contaminate it. Clean everything first before you do anything else. Now, for people at greater risk for dehydration, that would include older adults, young children, pregnant women, immunocompromised people, and those with certain kidney or medical conditions. I want you to use extra caution and be reasonable in what you do. Now, the other thing I learned, how are they treating it? They're treating Cyclospora with an antibiotic. And when I first heard that, I thought that was strange because an antibiotic is usually for bacteria, but Cyclospora is not a bacterium. However, the word antibiotic describes a broad group of antimicrobial drugs, and some of these medications can act against organisms other than bacteria. So the treatment of choice for Cyclospora, they are using a drug called Bactrim, and they are using a drug called Septrim. The two components, they block different steps in the organism's folate pathway, and folate metabolism is necessary for the production of genetic material and for the organism to continue developing. But by blocking that pathway at two different points, the medication interferes with Cyclospora's ability to survive and reproduce. So this is what they're using, and if you're going to a doctor or a hospital, it's likely that that's what they're going to give you. So something else I want to address is that this is not a parasite I would recommend trying to eliminate with herbs, juice cleanses, supplements, or an at-home parasite cleanse. Persistent watery diarrhea can cause serious dehydration and electrolyte loss, and the immediate priorities are proper testing, medical treatment when indicated, and replacing fluids. I want to give you some of the signs that you may be becoming dehydrated. Now, I just did a video, you might be able to find it, where I talked about dehydration and how important you need to know the signs. But here are some of the signs: very dark urine, dry mouth, dizziness, rapid heartbeat, severe weakness, muscle cramps, confusion, your inability to keep fluids down. And here's the thing: repeated diarrhea does not only remove water, it removes sodium, it removes potassium, and other electrolytes involved in nerve signaling, muscle function, and heart rhythm. So some people may need a proper oral rehydration solution rather than plain water alone. So please, please, please seek prompt medical care if the person is fainting, confused, unable to drink, experience severe abdominal pain, so many other things. If you have any of the symptoms that you are hearing about, don't try to self-medicate and self-diagnose. Go see a doctor. So I hope this video gave you some help to understand what's going on. Now, I teach detoxification. In this case, education is not enough. If there is a problem, you need to, again, seek medical attention. So if you know someone who needs this information, what I want you to do is share this video with your friends, with your family, because most people have never heard of Cyclospora until they or someone they love becomes sick. And I'm hoping I gave you enough information here today. If you haven't subscribed to me, please subscribe to my channel. Please pass it on, and I will see you in my next video.